Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and this evening we'll be having a look at the latest GFS, GM, ECMWF and the GFS ensembles for the potential of a sort of upcoming heatwave with some very spring-like temperatures potentially for the second half of February. Do remember, if you like my videos and do enjoy them, make sure you do like and subscribe, as it does really help me out. But currently we are having a look at the latest GFS operational run, and you can see the high pressure, which has been giving us our very cold air over the past week, is moving out into Europe and is bringing quite cold air towards parts of Eastern Europe. If we have a look at this at the moment, you can see some very cold air is digging in down Eastern Europe, and some milder southwesterly winds are coming from northwestern Europe. This is going to be turning a lot milder over the next couple of days. It's still fairly cold towards the surface, and there's a lot of rain around at the moment. I'll show you the radar at the end of the video. But it's going to be turning much milder this week, maybe highs of around 11-12 degrees. But it's sort of next weekend into the following week, so where the potential we could be seeing some very sunny and quite warm temperatures for February. Now, as we run through this latest GFS run, we do maintain quite a cyclonic pattern, with low pressures coming in off the Atlantic. They're not going to pass straight through the UK, so it will be it will not be super windy or anything. They'll still be quite gusty, perhaps some more strong winds in the north and the west, and as ever there'll be weather fronts crossing the country, providing some quite significant rain in some areas. But as we head towards the end of this week, you can see these areas of low pressure coming out of America, and that's because of the latest very cold plunge of polar air into America, which is bringing some record temperatures towards parts of central parts of the United States. And what's this going to do? It's going to really power up this area of low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's going to dip down the jet stream, and the jet stream is going to dive southwards, and when it dives back northwards, it's going to bring up southerly winds. Now, this is not the very warm temperatures we could be seeing. Next Sunday, we could be still bringing up quite mild temperatures, especially for parts of southeastern United Kingdom. But it's after this next low clears is when we could, when this low clears is when we could be bringing up those very mild temperatures. Another low moves out of America, and a big European high develops, and with this we are pulling up some very mild southerly winds. Now, if we have a look at the 850 HPA temperatures, we are pulling up some very, very warm air, 10 degrees, maybe even getting up to maybe 12, 14 degrees at 850 HPA, which is very warm this time of year. If we got these temperatures at 850 HPA in the summer, we could be looking at potentially mid-20s, maybe even towards 30 degrees in sort of June, July. But considering it's February, the most probable temperatures will probably be mid-teens, and if we do see some sunshine, and we do see consecutive days where heat can build, we could be seeing maybe even 20 degrees, possibly. Similar to the record-breaking heat we had in 2019, as it came from a very similar pattern as this. Towards the end of the run, the high pressure stays around, but low pressure tries to come in over the Atlantic. But the high pressure, as we were in sort of a blocking regime after the sudden stratospheric warming, continually wants to move up towards the north. But the polar vortex is relatively strong, i.e. these areas of low pressure is trying to push the low pressure, the high pressure away. High pressure does get sufficiently north enough for us to pull in some colder air again. So a lot of people are thinking that there's potential that after we see this sort of warm up, we could be plunged back into the freezer, as this high pressure is looking like it wants to head further northwards. And at the moment, some of the longer range models are definitely suggesting this high pressure could edge towards Greenland, Iceland, and we could be digging in some easterly winds. And as we head towards the end of this current GFS run, we are pulling up some quite cold easterly winds. Now, we don't get very bitterly cold air in, but we do pull in some quite cool air off the continent, and it wouldn't be producing very much snow, or it wouldn't be producing very bitterly cold temperatures, but overnight we would definitely be dropping below freezing, and in the day maybe only 3, 4, 5 degrees, so it could cool down quite significantly for the end of February and start of March. A subtle difference in this, we could be pulling in some very bitterly cold air from the northeast, and that's really one to watch with what happens with this high. The warmer this sort of heat wave could go, it could actually take advantage. It could create a much colder spell as we get warm air advection where the high pressure on its western edge, you see the winds come around the high pressure clockwise. It will pump up warm air northwards from this high pressure, and that encourages high pressure to build further northwards. So by having a very warm spell, it actually encourages more northern blocking, which could then give us an even colder spell towards the end of February, early March. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, because whatever happens with this higher pressure, with the warmer spell, will affect how we see the end of February and start of March in terms of potential for some late winter northern blocking. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. We'll have a look at the GEM run, and the GEM is showing very similar pattern to GFS. And as we head towards 144 hours, you can see we are diving that low southwards, and it's picking up the jet stream, and we are pulling up some quite warm southerly winds. Now that's next Saturday, but we do have weather fronts coming through again. But as we head towards the end of the run, high pressure does try and build in, but it doesn't build in for the whole of the country. So this is always one looking in the longer term, because this isn't in sort of the 7-day time frame yet. So it's not guaranteed it's going to actually come off, but it's looking more and more likely. But as you can see, for parts of the southeast, we are under this higher pressure. We're probably going to be quite warm in the southeast. Upper airs are not very, very warm, so not likely to be as warm as the GFS run. But again, fairly mild. The only issue would be that we are pulling up some more southwesterly winds. The high is not concentrated over the top of us, so winds will be stronger coming in off the Atlantic, could be providing weather fronts and areas of rain, especially for western areas, especially for western and southern areas, could be seeing some rain with that. So even though the temperatures will be up, it still could feel reasonably cooled with some rain coming off of the Atlantic. So that really is one to watch, because that's a subtle difference in the area of the higher pressure. Could make a big difference in whether we see hot, warm and dry, or mild and wet conditions. You can see there is a lot of cold air to our northeast, so it's very interesting to see that collecting towards day 10. And I'd like to, if we could, run this GEM run on longer, and we could be seeing some bitterly cold easterly winds coming in, as this higher pressure is being pushed, so this low pressure is being pushed out towards Scandinavia and Siberia by some higher pressure over the pole. And with this higher pressure over the top of the UK, if that does connect up, that's where we could be starting to see those easterly winds with some colder air towards the end of February and start of March. So again, it's a very fluid and changing pattern, and it's very interesting to see how this develops. We could go from a bitterly cold start to February to a very warm and mild middle of February, and then a very cold end of February. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. If we now have a look at the ECMWF run, you can see very similar again to the GFS and GM in the shorter term. Then we do pull up those quite mild southerly winds, and the higher pressure builds in quite early. So on the GFS and GM run, this low is a bit further north, and it passes through, brings a cooler front through. But on the ECMWF run, the high pressure builds in and doesn't allow that lower pressure to move through, and we maintain quite warm southerly winds, and there's a pocket of quite warm air. It engulfs the whole of the UK, quite balmy southerly winds, and again would be quite dry and quite warm. Further western areas, we could be seeing weather fronts encroaching, as there is quite a deep area of low pressure near to the country, but that area of low pressure is actually helping us pull up the southerly winds. So if that low gets a bit too close, it could provide weather fronts for western areas, but it could also enhance the upper air temperatures as well. So it's really one to see which one wins out, the higher pressure or the lower pressure with that. And as we head towards day 10, you can see warm air advection. This is what I'm talking about, pumping very warm air into the Arctic and enhancing a build of high pressure. And if we go back to the pressure pattern, you can see a big Scandinavian high is developing towards day 10, and you can see easterly winds are gathering again in Eastern Europe, and you run that on another couple of days, we could be building up a big Scandinavian high. You can see there's not a lot of energy in the Atlantic jet stream, so we could be being plunged back into the freezer for the end of February and early March. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with that. All three main models are suggesting that colder air is going to it's got to move to our north and east. Higher pressure is going to try and build to our north, And really just one to watch over the next week to see if this comes into the shorter time range. And we could see some very cold easterly winds. Now, if the high pressure doesn't move too far northwards, it could just be turning into a more continental flow, so a bit cooler, but nothing too exceptional. But if we do get that high pressure in up towards Scandinavia, with quite a cold pull to our north and our east, we could be going very bitterly cold. And if I put on the temperature deviations, you can see very warm air advection getting pushed up into the Arctic, and bitterly cold air out towards Eastern Europe. And you can see we are in the warmer air initially, but that colder air is getting closer and closer. And this current ECMWF run looks like a classic preemptive to a bitterly cold easterly wind with a Scandinavian high. So if I did run this on, it does look like this would be going bitterly cold on this ECMWF run. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next couple of days. If we have a look at the GFS upper air temperatures and precipitation, you can see it's above average at the moment. It's not going to feel too warm at the moment. It will feel a bit warmer than last week, but it won't feel too mild or warm, as we still got a lot of rain around. It dips down as lower pressure moves in with weather fronts, colder sectors. So it's going to be around average temperatures, maybe high single digits, maybe low double digits, around 11-12 degrees highs. And then we see that push of southerly winds initially, and with that we see upper airs getting up to maybe 5, maybe even getting to maybe 6 degrees, 7 degrees, which would give decent 2 meter temperatures. And then we see a colder front move through as low pressure tries to make inroads, but you can see after that it does look like that will get blocked out by a Euro high, and that will build back in, and we see those much warmer temperatures. You can see the GFS run does go quite warm, and then we do see that dip to bitterly cold air, and you can see quite a few ensemble members are showing us getting back to very, very cold conditions. So you can see in the longer term, very little precipitation relative to the shorter term, so it shows you lower pressure at the moment and then higher pressure builds in. So it's definitely looking a lot drier in the longer term, but whether we say sustain very mild temperatures or whether we do go back into the freezer for the end of March, end of February, start March, it'll be very interesting to see that indeed. If we have a look at the 2 meter temperatures, you see at the moment around 9-10 degrees, and then as we get those southerly winds, maybe 13-14 degrees. Good few days where the highs could be around 11-12 degrees, maybe getting up to parts of 16-17 degrees, and with the Föhn effect, we could be seeing even higher than that. Then as we head into the longer term, you see quite a spread on the ensembles. Some going for highs around 14, others going for highs around 1 or 2. So it'll be very interesting to see whether that easterly wind does come off in the longer term. One reason why I'm emphasising the potential for this easterly wind is because this winter has been very much quite a blocked winter. So if ever the longer range models were going to get it right with an easterly wind, it would be this year. Other years we've seen easterly winds in the longer term, but we've always had quite a westerly flow throughout the winter, so it's very much been quite sceptical. But considering we've already had an easterly wind this winter, we've had a lot of northern blocking, I would not be surprised if by the end of February, early March, we do see another bout of bitterly cold easterly winds. Well, finally, we'll have a look at the current radar from the Weather Channel. Just let it refresh. And if we zoom out, you can see quite heavy rain for parts of Wales, England, southwestern areas, northeastern areas, quite widely, quite heavy rain. The heaviest rain over Scotland has moved out into the North Sea now, and we've got showers coming in behind it. Even under this, in most eastern areas, it's still feeling pretty cool and pretty miserable. Around 3, 4, 5 degrees, heavy rain, and it's still feeling quite cool. By tomorrow, once this rain has cleared, it does look like it may be quite a pleasant day tomorrow, especially with the temperature. There will be showers around, of course. It'll be a bit windy, but in general, the temperatures will be maybe 11-12 degrees quite widely. So it will feel quite very, very nice compared to what we've had over the last week plus really. Cold spell started sort of Saturday, Sunday last weekend. So yeah, very interesting to see what happens in the longer term with regards to this warmer spell and the colder spell. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe and I'll see you again for another video tomorrow.